Today, we're going to talk about a voice that so many of us know, but we don't always have a name for it. It's the inner gaslighter. This is all about understanding how that nagging self-doubt really takes root and, more importantly, how we can start to trust ourselves again.
So, have you ever walked away from a conversation just feeling completely confused? Like you're questioning your own memory of what just happened? Or maybe you catch yourself thinking, wait, am I overreacting here? Am I just being too sensitive? You know that feeling? That deep, sinking self-doubt? That's exactly where we're going to start.
It can honestly feel like you're trying to see through a thick fog. Your own reality just feels unsteady, dim, kind of unreliable. It's a lot like the flickering flame of an old gas lamp. And believe me, that image is way more important than you might think.
Okay, let's dive right in. We hear the word gaslighting thrown around all the time, right? But what does it actually mean, and where did it even come from?
So here's the clinical definition. And what's really key here is that it's not a one-time event. It's a pattern. The whole point of this manipulation, whether the person doing it even realizes it or not, is to slowly, bit by bit, just chip away at your confidence in your own mind.
And this is that origin story I mentioned. It all comes from this play where a husband secretly, deliberately dims the gas-powered lights in their house. And every time his wife says, hey, are the lights getting dimmer? He just tells her she's imagining it. He does this over and over until she starts to believe she's actually losing her mind. He is literally making her doubt what she sees with her own two eyes. This quote, this just gets to the heart of what makes gaslighting so incredibly toxic. It's like a psychological attack that disables your psychological immune system. It goes after the very tools you need, your perception, your memory, your sanity, to even recognize that you're under attack in the first place. How can you fight something you're being convinced doesn't exist?
So where does a pattern like this even come from? Well, for a lot of us, the roots don't actually start in our adult relationships. They start much, much earlier.
In childhood, it can look a lot like this. A parent just flat out denying something happened, or telling you you're too sensitive when you're hurt, or even subtly changing the details of a memory. Each of these things, they all send this one powerful message to a child. You can't trust yourself. I am the keeper of reality here.
And that's a totally fair question, right? This behavior is so damaging. So what on earth could motivate a parent to act this way?
While the research is pretty clear that this often isn't about intentional cruelty, it's usually an unconscious strategy, and it's rooted in the parent's own struggles, their own fragility, their need for control, or just an inability to face their own feelings. And a lot of the time, they're simply repeating a pattern that they learned themselves as kids.
You really have to see this from a child's perspective. For them, this is all about survival. A child's brain is wired for one thing above all else: staying alive. And survival depends on their attachment to their caregiver. So if that caregiver says the sky is green, it is much safer for the child to doubt their own eyes than it is to risk the relationship they absolutely need. So they adopt the parent's reality to stay safe.
Okay, but here's the critical turning point in this whole story. Over time, that external voice, it doesn't just disappear when you grow up. It moves in.
That voice of the parent, or a partner, or whoever it was, it becomes a part of your own internal dialogue. You don't need someone else telling you you're overreacting anymore, because now you tell it to yourself. And in psychology, specifically in something called schema therapy, this actually has a name: the inner gaslighter mode. And just giving it a name is so powerful, because it lets us see it for what it is. It's an old, internalized pattern. It's not a fundamental truth about who you are. So to really get how this inner gaslighter works, it helps to have a kind of map of our internal psychological world. Okay, so what you're looking at here is a simplified mode map from schema therapy. The easiest way to think about it is like a weather map, but for your mind. It shows all the different emotional states or modes that we all have and how they interact. Now look at that upper cluster of circles. See the one labeled gaslighting? But check out its neighbors. It's hanging out with other punitive and demanding parent modes. See, this tells us something really important. It's not some standalone feeling. Nope, it's part of a whole ecosystem of self-attack. It's a voice that learned how to criticize and invalidate right from the get-go.
One of its main targets is what's called the vulnerable child node. That's the part of you that feels small or sad or scared. The inner gaslighter just swoops in and tells that part, your feelings aren't real, which of course just makes the confusion and helplessness even worse.
And here's its other main job, which is just as damaging. The inner gaslighter actively tries to sabotage your healthy adult mode, the strong, capable, clear-thinking part of you. So every time you try to think rationally or trust your gut, the inner gaslighter is right there whispering, "Are you sure about that? You're probably wrong."
So what happens when you have this internal war going on? Well, the source material calls it an emotional compass disruption. Your entire internal guidance system gets thrown completely off course. You have a hard time even knowing what you're feeling. You start looking to other people to tell you what to think. You find yourself apologizing for things that are not your fault, all because you can't trust your own internal sense of north.
And this brings us to the most important question of all. How do you fix a broken compass? I mean, how do you learn to navigate your own life when you've been taught to doubt the map, the compass, and the very ground beneath your feet?
Well, the path forward involves a few really key steps. First, you have to map it out. Figure out where this voice came from and what triggers it. Then you confront it. You treat it as something separate from you. You also have to heal those original wounds by giving your younger self the validation they never got. And finally, you just practice. Practice listening to your own body and your own emotions, slowly and patiently recalibrating that compass. And this is the goal, to be able to hold your own internal compass, to trust its direction, and to just know that it's pointing toward your own true reality. The journey isn't about getting rid of the inner gaslighter forever, but it's about learning not to let it steer the ship anymore.
Because really, that's the core takeaway here. The fog starts to clear and the light gets steady the moment you decide that your own perception, your own feelings, and your own experience are valid. No outside confirmation required.
So, we'll leave you with this question to think about. And it doesn't have to be some huge, dramatic gesture. What's just one small way, today, that you can choose to honor your own perception and listen to what your own compass is telling you,